Welcome back to Open Your Reality. This is part 3 of a 3-part series on what nobody told you about simulation theory. The link to the first 2 parts will be in the description. You guys overwhelmingly asked for part 3, so here it is. Now, to get on with the show. So, I could take this video in 1,000 different directions. I actually wrote an outline where I jump right into the higher self and begin where I left off in part 2. However, I decided to alter the script a bit. I did that because I want to tell you my story, the tale of how I arrived to where I am today in my spiritual journey. Talking about the details of simulation theory is important, but I believe it's equally significant to share my story. Many of the people watching this video are probably in the same boat I was in some years ago. Hopefully, you're okay with me going off track a bit. The content is still high quality, and I think you'll really enjoy the ride. I do get back into the topic of the higher self later in the video, just in case you're wondering. When I became interested in consciousness, spirituality, and metaphysics in my early 20s, I had a ton of questions. I know most of you do as well, as I see them in the comment section every day. Trying to piece together the mystery that is existence is not an easy task. The beginning of my journey occurred in the pre-internet age, and the best I could do was read every book I could get my hands on. Of course, meditating, traveling, and talking to other people were other valid ways to get information, but reading books was always resonated with me, and it seemed the most efficient way of absorbing important data. The problem was that the books I read often contradicted each other. It's like I never knew which author had the credible theory. Sometimes I believed I was on the right track, then I'd read other books and they would confuse me more. This went on for about 15 years, really until YouTube came of age. Once it did, it opened up a whole new dimension of learning for me. Instead of just reading in silence, I could watch interviews in sound and color on my computer. It was like the information coming to life. And even more, I could browse through dozens of videos in a day, whereas I could only read one book in the course of several days. It was while watching YouTube that I learned about simulation theory and the work of Tom Campbell. I know I speak a lot about Tom, but this is the guy that changed everything for me. Before I came across Tom, I had 100 different ideas swimming in my mind, and I didn't know which ones to believe. Of course, I had a notion of reality, but it was always kind of nebulous. I found Tom interesting, and since he was one of the forerunners of simulation theory, and one of the few who was talking about the subject at the time, it was a no-brainer to listen to his talks. I've now listened to over 100 hours of Tom talks, maybe even 200, and have absorbed a huge amount of data. By doing so, it completely revamped my spiritual outlook on life. What was convoluted and confusing before is now ordered and clear, at least in a left-brain logical way. As you can tell, I hold Tom in high regard, but rest assured, this is not a cult channel and I am not trying to convert anyone. I just believe that Tom's theory is valid and the best I've come across. This is how I know so much about simulation theory and spirituality. Much of it comes from Tom's MBT theory, but it also stems from my own experience, being on the spiritual path for more than 2 decades now. So that's how I came to where I am today. I feel like I now have a very clear perspective of reality, and the deepest questions people ask, questions like, what is the meaning of life? Why was our simulation constructed? And what happens when we die? You know, before making my videos, I often ponder the information I'm going to say for several days. Over the last couple of nights, I had an interesting thought on simulation theory that nobody really talks about. And that is, it can be looked at from 2 entirely different perspectives. For one, We can approach it from a purely scientific viewpoint. Some of you are only seeing it this way. You're here because you want to know the science behind it. What are the latest findings in physics demonstrating about simulation theory? Where is the evidence for it? How does it relate to our current scientific theories? This is a very left-brained approach, but also a very solid one, because every theory should be backed by good science. And the second perspective of simulation theory is seeing it through a spiritual lens. Once we agree and accept on the science of it, we can see that a simulated universe best explains our reality. Tom Campbell came to this exact conclusion, and then formulated his MBT theory. MBT stands for My Big Theory of Everything. It's basically a theory that can account, well, for everything. And I mean everything. This includes science, life, death, the state of our world, other dimensions, the paranormal, and even the meaning of life. The only thing it really has no answer for is the identity of our Creator and what exists outside of us. I know many of you believe in God, and that's perfectly cool. I'm not denying there's a God. I'm just saying that Tom's theory does not account for anything outside the simulation, because it's not possible to know. Why? Because it's a logical impossibility for anything in a closed system to know what is outside of it. Rather than take this as blasphemy, I look at it as good science. Tom definitely could have made a presumption about what lies outside our simulation, but he didn't. We can leave it up to the theologians, the mystics, and ourselves to speculate what it could be. And now, let's turn our attention back to the simulation. The entire simulation is an engineered computer program that Tom calls the Larger Consciousness System, or LCS for short. I know I'm stating some of the same information as in the first two videos of this trilogy, but it's necessary to give a brief foundation for the information coming. Besides that, not all of you have seen those videos. So, when our simulation was created, we were also created. We were part of the deal, so to speak. We being individuated units of consciousness, each one different and slightly unique from the other. By consciousness, I mean we had awareness and intelligence. We could communicate, feel emotions, and express them. Now, imagine us having just been created as new consciousness. We have no body to inhabit and nowhere to go. Instead, we kind of float around in a utopian environment where we could interact with each other. In this environment, we have no needs and we face no danger. This is beautiful, right? Well, maybe, but we also couldn't experience growth, and it wasn't that exciting. So the LCS decided to construct virtual reality frames for us to inhabit, where we could experience growth. It did this by creating virtual universes with worlds and bodies for us to inhabit. Keep in mind that our consciousness too is virtual, and everything I mention here is simulated and computed. I know some people think that our higher self is real, and our bodies are virtual, or some other scenario like that. But the truth is that everything we know, experience, and see is virtual. It's all just information. Alright, moving on. So, after these universes were constructed, we broke off a piece of our consciousness and sent them into one of these universes. Earth happens to be a planet in one of these universes, and is quite a popular destination for consciousness to evolve in. Again, the reason the LCS constructed universes, including ours, was for us to use them as growth labs. We accomplished this by sending a piece of our higher self into a quote-unquote physical body, which is really just an avatar. Our consciousness is the power that controls our actions, not our brains or bodies. Remember though, everything is virtual. just ones and zeros on a hard drive outside our simulation. While many of us lament our condition here, we agreed to leave the higher self. By doing so, we've fully immersed a part of our consciousness into a virtual world in order to evolve its quality. But why do we need to evolve, you may ask? That is a great question. Actually, the entire simulation wants to evolve, and it does that through us. When we evolve, it evolves. That's because we are it, and it is we. For a simulated system, evolution translates into order. When there's a harmony of mathematical precision, as the architect from the Matrix said, the system is in good standing and thrives. But when it's in disorder, or when entropy is high, it de-evolves and loses coherence, basically becoming random. If this continues for long, the simulation runs the risk of being terminated. This is why it's so important for us to evolve. The system actually wants that for us, because when we level up, it ensures the survival of the entire system. Guys, there's so much more I need to say about the higher self, how to level up in the simulation, and what it means for our earthly lives. But unfortunately, I'm out of time. Gee, I thought part 3 would be the finale, but now it's looking like a part 4 might be necessary. Or should I just make a new video and start fresh? Let me know in the comments section. Also, I have several cool ideas for brand new videos, including doing one on the Ascended Masters. I can't wait for that one. If you're enjoying my content, share it around and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll see you in the next one.